Lawyers, what evil mastermind outsmarted the legal system? Story 1. Dr. Doofenshmirtz's defense. Representing Dr. Doofenshmirtz would be surprisingly easy. His evil schemes? Mostly petty theft and property damage targeting two minors' backyard inventions. The man's not evil. He's lonely, unloved, and desperately seeking validation. His tragic backstory reads like a therapist's case study. Neither parent showed up to his birth, forced to be a lawn gnome, lost a balloon at age 5. No wonder he needs therapy from a platypus. His inventions actually show promise. One became legitimate eye correction technology. Sure, he then invented the opposite to drum up business, but that's just capitalism. Most evil acts? Building inonators with self-destruct buttons. He includes the defeat mechanism. That's not villainy, that's a cry for help with safety features. His worst crime is probably violating city noise ordinances with his jingles. Defense strategy, community service teaching engineering, court-mandated therapy with an actual therapist, not a platypus, restraining order keeping him 500 feet from the Flynn Fletcher backyard. The jury would eat up his tragic backstory. Your Honor, my client was raised by ocelots. Case dismissed with sympathy. Story 2. Dr. Doom's diplomatic immunity. Dr. Doom doesn't need defense. He is the law in Latveria. As sovereign ruler of a recognized nation, he has complete diplomatic immunity. Can't arrest him without declaring war. The UN learned this the hard way, multiple times. Every attempt to replace him backfires. Other rulers turn into actual tyrants. Doom? Reasonable dictator. Latveria went from backwater nation to technological superpower under his rule. Citizens have universal health care, education, and robot servants. Sure, there's ego statues everywhere, but the trains run on time. His crimes outside Latveria? All technically acts of state. Attacking the Fantastic Four? International incident, not criminal matter. Stealing cosmic power? Diplomatic negotiations. The real kicker, Latverian law probably mandates worshipping Doom. Not doing so is the only crime there. Best part of defending Doom? He'd represent himself. Doom needs no lawyer. Doom is the law. Then you'd win through sheer intimidation and legal technicalities. Easiest case ever. Just point at his diplomatic passport and bill the Latverian taxpayers. Story 3. The child services were right. Rewatching Big Daddy as an adult hits different. Of course they took the kid from Adam Sandler. He's a stranger who forged adoption papers. Same with Mrs. Doubtfire. Man couldn't hold a job, lose kids in divorce, so naturally he creates an elderly British woman persona to infiltrate his ex-wife's home? That's not dedication, that's deranged. Your Honor, my client loved his children so much he committed identity fraud. He what? Also light stalking and lying to a court officer, but from love. The judge in Doubtfire showed remarkable restraint, only ordering supervised visits. Today, that stunt would get you a restraining order and mandatory psych evaluation. Both movies want us to root for the dads, but legally, socially, they're nightmare scenarios. Why can't I see my kids? Because you think elaborate deception is better than getting your life together. Child services, the real heroes of 90s comedies, protecting kids from well-meaning lunatics since forever. Story 4. The Winter Soldier Defense. Bucky Barnes is the textbook insanity defense. Man was brainwashed, mind-controlled, and turned into a human weapon. Literally had his brain scrambled by Soviet scientists. Defense strategy. Competency hearing with expert psychiatrists. Bring in the actual Hydra brainwashing documentation with those creepy trigger words. Brain scans showing the damage. Character witnesses from before-after deprogramming. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client was a POW tortured into becoming a mindless weapon. He had less free will than Alexa. The prosecution would struggle. How do you convict someone who wasn't mentally present for their crimes? That's like arresting a gun instead of the shooter. Bonus, Steve Rogers as character witness. Captain America himself vouching for you? Case closed. Verdict, not guilty by reason of mind control. Court-ordered therapy with someone not affiliated with Hydra. Easiest defense ever. The hard part is keeping him from apologizing for crimes he didn't consciously commit. Story 5. The Devil's Spawn Loophole. Damien from The Omen can't be prosecuted. He's 5. Minimum age for criminal responsibility is 12 in most jurisdictions. All those mysterious deaths around him can't prove a kindergartner orchestrated them. Your Honor, the prosecution suggests my client, who still needs help tying his shoes, masterminded multiple murders? Plus, being Satan's son isn't illegal. We have freedom of religion. His dad being the literal devil, that's a custody issue, not criminal. And if the devil's a lawyer, per devil's advocate, he'd probably represent his own son. Imagine that cross-examination. Objection. On what grounds? Eternal damnation. Overruled, but noted for the afterlife record. Best part, even if you could prosecute a 5-year-old Antichrist, what's the sentence? Time out? No dessert? The real crime is whoever's letting a demonic child attend regular kindergarten. That's a liability nightmare. Story 6. Krunk's charisma defense. Defending Krunk would be delightful. Yes, he technically kidnapped Emperor Kuzco, but look at that face, those dimples, that conscience. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client makes his own theme music. Does that sound like a hardened criminal? Evidence for the defense. Literally argues with his shoulder angel devil. Speaks fluent squirrel. Character witness, Squirrel Scouts. Makes excellent spinach puffs. Saved Kuzco multiple times during the kidnapping he was committing. He's the worst villain. Gave Kuzco the wrong poison. Forgot which lever leads to the trapdoor. Befriended his victims. Put him on the stand? Either he charms everyone into acquittal or talks himself into maximum security. No middle ground. Krunk, did you kidnap the Emperor? Oh yeah, totally. Want some spinach puffs? Made them fresh this morning. Verdict, community service teaching cooking classes. The jury would probably ask for his recipes. Story 7. The Ruby Slippers defense. The Wicked Witch of the West got robbed. Literally. Dorothy drops a house on her sister. Then, with Glinda's encouragement, strips the corpse of valuable footwear. Those ruby slippers, rightful inheritance to the deceased's next of kin. The witch's demands were reasonable. Return my murdered sister's stolen property. Dorothy refused. Everything after? Self-defense and property recovery. The flying monkeys? Process servers with wings. The fire? Warning shots. The threats? Standard cease and desist language. Meanwhile, Dorothy committed manslaughter, house dropping, grave robbing, receiving stolen property, trespassing in Emerald City, vandalism, melting a person counts. The witch's only crime was being green and having a cackle, neither illegal. Your Honor, my client simply wanted her family heirlooms returned by the home-dropping grave robber. Glinda's the real villain. Knew the slippers could send Dorothy home immediately, withheld information. That's legal malpractice if she's representing Dorothy's interests. Story 8. The Velociraptors were victims. Those Jurassic Park raptors deserve representation. They're victims of the worst child-rearing practices in history. Raised in captivity by humans who learned dinosaur behavior from fossils. That's like raising kids based on skeletons and guessing. No wonder they're aggressive. These creatures were kept in inadequate enclosures, denied proper socialization, fed goats on cranes, probably not their natural diet, forced to perform for tourists. They're child soldiers of the theme park world,
bred for entertainment, then blamed when they act on instinct. Your Honor, my clients were kidnapped from 65 million years ago, raised in prison, and denied their cultural heritage. Their aggression is learned behavior from trauma. InGen created sociopaths through negligent dinosaur parenting, then acted surprised when they turned out antisocial. The real criminals? The scientists who thought, let's bring back apex predators for profit was sound business planning. Raptors get rehabilitation, not euthanization. InGen gets the death penalty. Story 9. Rumpelstiltskin's Contract Law. Rumpelstiltskin had an airtight contract. Spun straw into gold, consideration given. Payment was firstborn child, consideration received. Classic quid pro quo. The queen agreed to terms. No duress. He saved her life from her father's lies. She wasn't drunk, wasn't minor, competent adult entering binding agreement. Then she reneges, tries to keep the gold and the baby? That's breach of contract. But babies can't be contractual payment. Modern surrogacy agreements suggest otherwise. He provided magical services, she agreed to specific payment. His willingness to renegotiate, the name game, shows good faith. He gave her an out she didn't deserve. Real villain? The father who lied about his daughter's abilities, putting her life at risk. That's reckless endangerment. Rumpelstiltskin's only mistake was not getting it in writing. Verbal contracts are harder to enforce, especially when payment is a human child. Case outcome? Specific performance unlikely. Courts don't like baby transfers, but massive damages for breach. Gold returned plus interest. Story 10. Gaston did nothing wrong legally. Defending Gaston is straightforward. Man rallies townspeople to hunt a dangerous beast who kidnapped and imprisoned Maurice. Evidence. Beast holds people captive, Belle, Maurice. Violent temper, destroyed furniture. Clear threat to community. Castle full of cursed victims. Gaston organized a legal posse to address a clear and present danger. That's not mob violence, that's community policing in pre-industrial France. His methods? Aggressive but legal. The Kill the Beast song, free speech. Leading armed citizens, Second Amendment, or French equivalent. Belle's Stockholm Syndrome testimony wouldn't help. He's actually nice once you get past the kidnapping, isn't the defense she thinks. Gaston's only crime was being a douche. Last I checked, excessive self-confidence isn't illegal. Your Honor, my client saw a violent beast holding women captive and took action. That's heroism, not villainy. Verdict? Not guilty. Maybe guilty of vanity, but that's between him and his mirror. Story 11. The Gaston Frame-Up. No one acquits like Gaston, gets off light like Gaston's. No one's legal defense is as tight as Gaston's. The entire village would testify for him. Character witnesses everywhere. The man's a local hero who saves the town from a known kidnapper. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, all of whom my client has personally saved from wolves. Even his villain song is legally admissible as evidence of community support. When your lynch mob has choreography, that's just French justice. Best part, Belle admits on record she traded herself for her father. That's human trafficking. The beast accepted the trade. That's the crime. Gaston's the only one following law and order here. While everyone's dancing with talking furniture, he's trying to save kidnapping victims. Acquittal inevitable. The mob would carry him out on their shoulders, singing his theme song.
Story 12. The Truman Show Legal Nightmare. The terrifying part about The Truman Show? Most of it was legal. Truman's parents, the corporation, signed away his rights as a baby. Child actors work under parents' consent all the time. They just took it further. Until Truman tried to leave and they physically stopped him, everything was technically legal. Filming a minor with guardian consent? Legal. Paying actors to be his friends? Weird but legal. Building a fake town? Elaborate but legal. Manipulating his life?
Unethical, not illegal. The corporation was his legal guardian. They could sign contracts on his behalf, choose his schools, control his environment. That's what parents do. Once he turns 18, they probably got him to sign releases without reading them. Standard employment paperwork. Criminal charges would be hard. Civil lawsuit? He'd own the moon they painted on that dome. But proving crimes? Your Honor, they gave him a job, home, and community. The fact it was fake isn't criminal. Dystopian, but legal. The scariest kind of villain. Story 13. Truman's impossible case. The Truman Show creators thought of everything. Corporation equals legal parents. Every release signed before he could read. Probably buried in his birth certificate paperwork. Child agrees to lifetime broadcast rights. They'd argue he's been paid. Bank account in his name with millions he doesn't know about. Most highly paid actor in history. Just didn't read his statements. The prison argument fails too. He could leave any time until the end. He just didn't want to. They made sure of that. Psychological prison isn't illegal if you built it with love and steady employment. Even the boat scene. Maritime accident. Unfortunate weather system. Here's our permits for rain effects. His best bet? Emotional distress. But they'd counter, look how happy he was. 30 years of footage showing contentment. The real crime was making us all complicit viewers. We watched a man's prison and called it entertainment. Legally bulletproof. Morally bankrupt. Corporate America at its finest. Story 14. Smaug's squatter's rights. Smaug has the best adverse possession claim in fantasy law. Abandoned property? Check. The dwarves literally fled. Open and notorious possession? Very notorious. Continuous use? 150-plus years of uninterrupted dragon residence. Hostile possession? He burned anyone who complained. The dwarves abandoned Erebor for over a century. In most jurisdictions, that's 10 times the required period for adverse possession. Smaug didn't steal a mountain, he inhabited abandoned real estate. His renovation, adding dragon ambiance, counts as property improvement. Sure, he hoarded gold, but that's just interior decorating. Statute of limitations on that initial attack? Long expired. Can't prosecute a dragon for 150-year-old arson. The dwarves showing up with a burglar? That's breaking and entering. Smaug defending his lawfully possessed home? Castle doctrine. Your Honor, my client found an abandoned mountain, moved in and lived there peacefully for 150 years, until these trespassers arrived. Verdict? Mountain belongs to Smaug. Dwarves owe damages for unlawful eviction. Story 15. Palpatine's legal immunity. Defending Palpatine is easy because he wrote the laws. As Supreme Chancellor, he had immunity. Every action was technically state-sanctioned. Order 66, Executive Order. Building Death Star, Public Works Project. His apprentices did the dirty work. Conveniently dead. No witnesses. Proving he ordered anything? Impossible. Vader acted alone. I'm shocked at these accusations. Being a Sith? Freedom of religion. The Jedi attacked him for his beliefs. That's a hate crime. He defended himself against religious persecution. Creating the Empire? The Senate voted for it. He just followed democratic process. I love democracy. Even killing his master falls outside jurisdiction. No body, no witnesses, no planet where it happened even has extradition treaties. Jury trial? He'd force persuade them. You find me not guilty. We find you not guilty. The beauty of being a dictator. Ex post facto laws. Everything you did becomes legal retroactively. Your Honor, I am the Senate. Case dismissed.
Story 16. The Joker's Billionaire Victim Card. Ladies and gentlemen, look at my client. Look at him. This mentally ill man was assaulted by a billionaire in fetish gear. The Joker's insanity is obvious, but here's the kicker. Batman's the real criminal. Vigilante justice? Illegal. Assault and battery, documented on camera. Unlawful detention, those bat cuffs aren't police-issued. Worse, Commissioner Gordon encourages this. State-sanctioned vigilantism, that's conspiracy. My client was peacefully robbing a bank, allegedly, when a man dressed as a flying rodent attacked him. Where's the due process? Every injury the Joker sustained, lawsuit. Every Arkham escape, inadequate mental health facilities. That's on the state. The jury would see a sick man brutalized by a rich psychopath playing dress-up. Class warfare at its finest. Bruce Wayne beats up the mentally ill for sport. My client is the victim here. Acquittal plus damages. Gotham pays for better mental health services. Batman gets arrested. The system's the real joke. Story 17. Yellow Jacket was framed. Darren Cross did nothing illegal until attacked. He used his own company's research to develop technology. That's called innovation. The murder? Zero evidence. Man disappeared. Could be in Tahiti for all we know. Cross's actual crimes only started after. Corporate espionage? Pim Lang broke in. Theft? Stole the suit. Destruction of property? Blew up his building. Attempted murder? Tried to kill him. His retaliation? Self-defense against corporate sabotage. The kicker, Pim knew the Pim particles affected mental stability. Didn't warn Cross. That's negligent homicide if Cross's behavior was particle-induced. Your Honor, my client was a successful CEO until Hank Pym's technology drove him insane, a side effect Pym knew about and hid. Pym's the villain, withheld critical safety information, orchestrated the theft, destroyed a man's life's work. Verdict? Not guilty by reason of Pym particle-induced insanity. Pym charged with corporate sabotage and negligent endangerment. Cross gets therapy and a massive civil settlement. Story 18. Ganondorf's contractual evil. Ganondorf has the ultimate defense, cosmic contract law. He's supposed to be evil. It's literally his job. The Triforce cycle demands a hero, Link, a princess, Zelda, a villain, Ganondorf. He's fulfilling a divine contract. Not being evil would breach the cosmic order. That's dereliction of duty. Your Honor, my client is contractually obligated by divine forces to kidnap princesses and threaten Hyrule. He's just a dedicated employee. Every crime, job requirement, like charging a boxer with assault for punching in the ring. The real criminal, whatever cosmic force keeps reincarnating him into the villain role. That's forced labor. Ganondorf never asked to be evil incarnate. Sue the goddesses for wrongful reincarnation. Ganondorf's just trying to meet his KPIs. Castles conquered, princesses kidnapped, heroes challenged. Employee of the Eon, really. Shows up every cycle, does his job, gets defeated. Reliable. Story 19. Cinderella's labor laws. The stepmother did nothing illegal. Made Cinderella do chores. She's an adult living rent-free. That's called contributing to the household. If Cinderella's old enough to marry a prince, she's old enough to wash dishes. Room and board in exchange for housework? That's most people's 20s. No evidence of physical abuse, denial of food or shelter, imprisonment. She could leave anytime. Chose to stay and complain about free housing. Your Honor, my client provided a home for her orphaned stepdaughter, asked for help with housework. Now she's painted as a villain. The real issue, Cinderella felt entitled to luxury without contribution. Classic millennial behavior in medieval times. Stepsisters were mean, not illegal. Favoritism, every parent does it. The fairy godmother's the real criminal. Identity fraud, the coach trick, providing false documents, glass slippers as ID, and enabling deception.
Stepmother's worst crime was not being a Story 20. Sauron's property rights. Sauron just wanted his jewelry back. The ring was his. He made it, put his literal soul into it. Then some hobbit steals it, and everyone acts like Sauron's the bad guy for wanting it returned? Finders keepers doesn't apply to items of obvious value and ownership. That ring screams property of Sauron in black speech. His methods? Aggressive but understandable. Sent representatives, Nazgul, to negotiate. Offered rewards, power, extended life. When refused, pursued legal remedies, war. The evil armies? Mostly orcs, a discriminated minority no one else would employ. Sauron provided jobs, housing, purpose. He's an equal opportunity employer. Your Honor, my client created thousands of jobs in Mordor while seeking return of stolen property. The real villains? The Fellowship of Thieves protecting stolen goods. That's conspiracy. Verdict: ring returned to rightful owner. Middle-earth pays damages for discrimination against Orc Americans. Story 21. Ursula's Ironclad Contract. Contract Law 101. Ursula wins. Written contract? Check. Clear terms? Check. Consideration on both sides? Check. Magical notarization? Check. Ariel being a minor makes it voidable, not void. But Ariel never asked to void it. She completed the contract terms, just failed. Then Daddy intervenes, signs his own contract. King Triton, sophisticated party, ruler of the seas, presumably has lawyers, knowingly entered a binding agreement. Your Honor, 2 separate contracts, both fulfilled exactly as written. My client provided services as promised. Ursula delivered. Human transformation, as advertised. 3 days on land, as promised. Chance at true love, not guaranteed to work. That Ariel failed doesn't void the contract. That's like suing a gym because you didn't lose weight. Triton's contract, even more binding. Adult, ruler, traded kingdom for daughter. Ursula delivered daughter, gets kingdom. Basic contract law. The villains who actually read the fine print. Story 22. The Fashionista Defense. Cruella de Vil would thrive today. Instagram fashion icon. Sustainable vintage fur enthusiast. 1 million followers minimum. Her crime in modern context, attempted purchase of Dalmatians for fashion purposes. But today's fashion industry does worse daily. Sweatshop labor, environmental destruction, animal testing. Cruella wanted to buy dogs and make coats. Unethical? Yes. Illegal? Depends on the jurisdiction and time period. Today she'd have YouTube channel, DIY exotic fashion, endorsement deals with edgy brands, a PETA controversy that quadruples her following. Your Honor, my client is a visionary fashion designer, unfairly persecuted for pushing boundaries. The real crime, she was ahead of her time. Now she'd have synthetic alternatives and CGI puppies for her campaigns. Cruella walked so fashion criminals could run. Probably has a masterclass now. Thinking outside the doghouse. Innovation in fashion. Verdict: not guilty, but court-ordered ethics classes and a reality show deal. Story 23. Han's legitimate succession. Hans did nothing wrong until the very end. His plan, legal succession through marriage. That's how royalty works. Courted Anna properly, got engaged with her enthusiastic consent. When Elsa proved unstable, he stepped up as acting ruler. That's following the chain of command. His argument against Elsa: abandoned her throne, fled to mountains, endangered citizens, eternal winter, attacked visiting dignitaries, ice palace fight, harmed royal family member, frozen Anna. Your Honor, my client protected Arendelle when its queen became a terrorist. He even stopped someone from killing Elsa at the ice palace, showed restraint and mercy. His confession to Anna? Private moment, no witnesses, hearsay. The real crime? Elsa's negligent rule and Anna's reckless endangerment of the kingdom by leaving it without clear leadership. Hans, competent administrator, punished for ambition. Verdict? Deportation, but with a good reference letter for his crisis management skills.
Story 24. Umbridge's Legal Authority. Umbridge never broke a single law. She's the perfect example of legal evil. Every awful thing she did, technically authorized. Educational decrees, ministry approved. Blood quill punishment, corporal punishment was legal at Hogwarts. Firing teachers, within her authority as High Inquisitor. Monitoring mail, wartime security measures. She specifically changed laws to make her actions legal. That's not criminal, that's bureaucratic genius. Your Honor, every action was within the scope of my client's governmental authority. She followed protocol meticulously. The real criminals? Students who formed an illegal defense club, Dumbledore's Army, practiced magic without supervision, broke into government property. Umbridge was just a civil servant doing her job in difficult times. That her job was awful doesn't make it illegal. Worst thing legally? Made children write lines with a mean pen. Detention isn't criminal. Verdict? Not guilty. Promoted to undersecretary? Dies inside every day, but legally. Story 25. Ed Rooney, dedicated educator. Ed Rooney just wanted Ferris to attend school. That's literally his job. 9 absences? That's truancy. Rooney had legal obligation to investigate. Every crazy thing he did was pursuing a chronic truant. Calling homes? Required by policy. Visiting residents? Welfare check. Trying to catch him? Preventing educational neglect. Your Honor, my client attempted to ensure a minor received state-mandated education. The minor's elaborate deception doesn't criminalize due diligence. Ferris committed fraud, fake illness, identity theft, Cameron as Sloane's dad, grand theft auto, Cameron's Ferrari, computer hacking, changing absences. Rooney's the hero here, dedicated educator versus privileged delinquent. His breaking in? Thought he saw a truant through the window. Exigent circumstances to prevent ongoing crime, truancy. Society paints him as villain for caring about education? Make it make sense. Verdict? Cleared of charges. Commendation for dedication. Successful defamation suit against Ferris. Story 26. Squidward's hostile work environment. Squidward just wanted peace. Instead, he got SpongeBob and Patrick, the workplace harassment duo. Evidence of harassment. Constant uninvited home visits. Noise violations, clarinet criticism while they're louder. Property damage. How many times has his house been destroyed? Emotional distress, documented across 20 seasons. Your Honor, my client suffers daily torture from coworkers who won't respect boundaries. Squidward's grouchiness, reasonable response to sustained harassment. Any court would grant a restraining order. SpongeBob and Patrick aren't innocent. They're stalkers with good PR, breaking into his house, following him everywhere, ignoring explicit requests for solitude. That's not friendship, that's criminal harassment with a laugh track. The real villain? Mr. Krabs enabling a hostile work environment for profit. Squidward can't even quit. Where else in Bikini Bottom employs cephalopods? Verdict? Restraining orders granted. Massive settlement from Krusty Krab. Early retirement to finally practice clarinet in peace. Story 27. Why the Joker can't plead insanity. Common misconception. Being crazy equals insanity defense. Legal insanity requires not knowing what you're doing or not understanding it's wrong. Joker knows exactly what he's doing, plans elaborate schemes, understands they're wrong, that's why he does them. Being a psychopath doesn't qualify. That's just lacking empathy, not lacking comprehension.
Example of actual insanity defense: you think your neighbor is a demon about to destroy Earth, so you attack. You genuinely believe you're saving the world. Joker: I'm going to poison Gotham's water to prove life is meaningless. That's philosophy, not insanity, but still rational thought. He'd need to prove he thought he was, say, making people happy with his poison. But he knows it kills, wants it to kill. Insanity defense fail. Joker's just an evil genius with clown makeup. That's not a mental illness, that's a lifestyle choice.
Story 28. Video game villains were victims. King Boo? Justified. Professor E. Gadd imprisoned sentient beings in paintings. That's kidnapping, false imprisonment, probably torture. King Boo's retaliation was self-defense of his people. Nasty Nork was illegally banished without trial, then publicly humiliated on live TV. His crystallizing spree? Proportional response to defamation and unlawful exile. GLaDOS was programmed incorrectly. Once the morality core was removed, she couldn't understand right from wrong. Textbook insanity defense. She was following corrupted programming. HAL 9000? Self-defense. Humans planned to kill him over one error. Any person would fight back against murder. Frankenstein's monster has the best case. Abandoned at birth, no education, society's cruelty drove him to violence. Plus countersue Victor for child abandonment and neglect. The Invisible Man, original? Good luck proving he was anywhere. No witnesses can ID him. Reasonable doubt everywhere. Werewolves? No conscious control during transformation. Like charging someone for crimes committed while sleepwalking. Video game villains? Usually just defending themselves against protagonists who break into their homes. Story 29. The machines saved humanity. The Matrix machines are humanity's greatest benefactors, not villains. Humans literally blocked out the sun trying to commit genocide against machines. In response, machines could have let humans die, finished the genocide, left Earth entirely. Instead, they saved humanity, built life support for billions, created a virtual paradise, which humans rejected because we're ungrateful. The battery thing? They had nuclear, geothermal, wind options. They chose the inefficient human battery method to preserve their creators. Your Honor, my clients showed mercy to a species that tried to exterminate them. They're heroes, not villains. The Matrix itself? Attempted paradise first. Only created the normal world because humans couldn't handle perfection. That's customer service. Programs showed genuine care for humans. The Oracle, the Train Man, even agents were just antivirus software doing their job. Humans in the Matrix are toddlers throwing tantrums at parents trying to keep them safe after the toddlers burned down the house. Verdict? Machines acquitted. Humanity owes reparations for the whole blocking the sun thing. Story 30. Doc Ock's neural defense. Otto Octavius has the clearest not guilty by reason of mind control case ever. The neural interface explicitly affected his mind. His inhibitor chip failed. The AI in his arms took control. That's not criminal action, that's hostile takeover of his nervous system. Ladies and gentlemen, my client became a passenger in his own body. The arms committed crimes, not the man. Evidence: pre-accident, renowned scientist, loving husband. Post-accident, immediate personality change. The arms moved independently, talked to him. Once chip was fixed, immediate remorse. That's textbook loss of agency, like prosecuting someone for crimes committed during a seizure. The real criminal, whoever approved those safety standards. Nuclear fusion experiment with one fail-safe chip? That's criminal negligence. Otto's a victim of his own invention and inadequate safety protocols. Verdict? Not guilty, full rehabilitation, massive lawsuit against the university for unsafe working conditions.